I believe that we will win. Yeah, okay, I'm riffing off of the US women's soccer team, right? But I love that mantra. I think it's really valuable, especially in sports, especially in something competitive, that you have that eye for a path to victory and that taste for it, that appetite for it. When it comes to activism, justice, change-making, whatever you want to call it, it's a lot more tricky, right? Like, what's a win and what's a loss is not that straightforward. Now, I want to talk about what we do when we don't get that win, right? I think of what Nelson Mandela said. I never lose, I only win, or I learn. And I'm probably paraphrasing, but I think he's right. When you have the right framework, it changes the arithmetic of what's a win or a loss, and you could even find yourself in a position where there is no loss. I'm thinking of this because I heard some interviews with leaders from the Hong Kong protests like a decade ago, and in many ways they didn't get their win, right? They didn't get what their demands were, what they were looking for, but all those people said that their movement was still extremely valuable. It changed the conversation, it changed the way people look at things, and that is a really valuable movement. In fact, part number one of what value there is to have when you don't get your win is exactly that. A shift in perception and awareness and public attitudes. And this might not feel like a lot, like I think we really recently experienced like a whole bunch of people being more aware of the appearance of racism in our country and like what that looks like at present day. And then like nothing really seems to have happened, at least in a significant way. It seems like all the changes afterwards were more symbolic. And that's unfortunate, and you really wish you did see something like that. But I do think that having that shift in awareness does put your cards in a much better position when the tides are in the favor for meaningful change to come across. Like I've seen this happen in the realm of climate advocacy. It was about 10 years ago when you started to see the things like the Sunrise Movement and Extinction Rebellion, the student walkouts all coalesce. At the time, the powers that be, particularly in the US, were not very inclined to take climate action. But because you had that movement, you really saw public attitude shift drastically in just a few years' time, to the point that when the political tides did turn, there was something to jump onto right away. So, even though you don't get your big win, winning the people, the hearts and minds of those around you, is in and of itself a win. It's also helpful to remember that backlash to change is a sign that change is happening. And this is really tricky because change can be, or backlash really sucks. And this backlash is real. Like, a lot of the nostalgia for the Confederacy that you see happen didn't really pop up significantly until the end of Jim Crow, right? Jim Crow was brought about by the end of slavery. And after Jim Crow ended, you started to see that increase in mass incarceration. And so backlash always happens, but it doesn't negate the fact that those wins that happened were still wins and still counted for something. And it's important to make the next win just as those before us did. Now, I think one of the most important things to recognize is that showing up for the work of justice or making things better, it's not about us, right? And so if we make it about us, we tend to attach ourselves more to seeing that short-term victory, of being able to say, I showed up at the rally worked, we did our campaign, and we changed things. And if we could all see this happen within like a 4 or 5 year horizon, that would be so great, right? We would kind of feel like we were really part of the movement, and the movement happened. And it feels like that's what it felt like when you read about things like the end of apartheid or the civil rights era. But for every person who lived to see those changes, there were like dozens and dozens who contributed towards it without seeing it come into fruition. And in many ways, they're all part of work that is never really over, of making a more just world. It's one that you're going to pass on in different ways to future generations. So when you realize that it's not just about you scoring the cool right side of history points for being part of it, when you realize that it's not just about having a clean report card of showing up for the right things at the right times, and it's really just about the people you're trying to help, the the injustices you're trying to end because you care about the people that they affect, that's when it really changes what the arithmetic of a win is. It becomes less about what you're able to see, what your own experience is with this movement, and more just, I'm showing up. And I might not even get what I'm asking for, but I know it matters to ask for it anyways because of you, because it affects you, because I care about you. You know, I was recently part of this fundraising campaign to help some communities in Haiti, and Haiti is a long way from having its most pressing issues solved, right? Like, unfortunately, it looks like none of them are going anywhere fast. But I think about some of the feedback, the messages I've heard back from people who just said, thank you for making our stories known, for showing up for this anyways. And in a lot of ways, that'll make you play for a win even more, play even harder. And in other ways, it'll make you see where you can step back and know that, like, your own personal value and stuff is not hinging on that. As someone who uses a lot of sports metaphors, I do think it's important to play to win, to visualize a win and to see it through. But I do think it's important to find the other things that motivate you to show up anyways, even when a win's not in sight, even when a win's not in the cards. You know, show up because it matters. Show up because it's what you do, because people matter. The people you're trying to serve, to impact, matter. And I think when we all take that mentality, in a way, we all end up winning. Thanks for hanging, and I'll see you on this next one.